The biggest news in ATL, the Falcons traded Calvin Ridley to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Welcome into Falcons Today by Chat Sports. Matthew Peterson here, breaking down this trade and some other trades that the Falcons made today. But the biggest name, of course, is Calvin Ridley, who, of course, has been suspended all season long. In fact, almost a year ago today, last October 31st, last Halloween, is when he stepped away from the Falcons, citing mental health reasons. So, almost a full year later, the Falcons decide to ultimately move on from the former first-round pick. Ian Rappaport, the first one to break it down. I'll give you my take on this because I think you're going to find a mixed bag of emotions out there in terms of whether or not this was a quote-unquote good trade for the Falcons. And we're going to go through the entire trade because it's probably the most complex trade I've ever seen in the NFL. All right. Ian Rappaport in his next tweet kind of breaking down this trade a little bit more, and we all have questions on, wait, so the Falcons got what pick and it's conditional on what? We're going to run through all of that, all right? But if he gets reinstated by a certain date, Calvin Ridley, that 2023 pick becomes a fifth rounder and not a sixth rounder, all right? If he makes the team in 2024, it's at least a fourth-round pick. So if he's on the roster for the next 2 seasons in Jacksonville, it's going to be most likely a fifth and a fourth. If he hits some playtime milestone, that fourth gets upgraded to a third. And if he gets a long-term deal done, it's a second. So best case scenario, Calvin Ridley was traded for a fifth and a second rounder. Most likely, kind of the middle of the pack, a fifth and a third. And I would say worst case is a fifth and a fourth. I don't think it's going to be a sixth and a fourth or a sixth and that's it or whatever. I think it's probably going to be a fifth and a third, somewhere in that range, maybe a second for Calvin Ridley. Now, Calvin Ridley himself, who had some great tweets when he got suspended last year. In fact, you might remember the game he gambled on was Falcons Jags. I wonder if there was a prop of Calvin Ridley traded to Jacksonville next year. But he's pumped to go to Duval County, it looks like, and I'm sure Trevor Lawrence is happy to have a legitimate wide receiver one next year. It's not going to help this year, but it's clear that Trent Baalke is doing what he can to get Trevor Lawrence the best tools around him so that he can be successful. And Calvin Ridley, he was successful in 2020. 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns. I mean, him and Julio at the start of his career formed a great duo, and it was kind of like the Roddy White-Julio duo where the torch would be passed from White to Jones. I had the same thought of Julio to Ridley, ultimately not to be. But here it is one last time. The Falcons trade details a conditional 5th or 6th round pick in 2023 that is based on when he gets reinstated. He has to apply for reinstatement. It's kind of a formality. He'll probably be reinstated. So most likely going to be a 5th round pick. And then 2024, it can be a second if Ridley gets a long-term extension with the Jags, a third if he reaches certain milestones based on playing time, or a fourth if that's all it is and he's on the roster in 2024. But grade the trade, A, B, C, D, or F. For me, I'm going to give it a B+, I think. Yeah, I'm going to go with a B+, because you never want to move on from proven talent, right? That kind of reflects a little bit poorly on the organization if they've got a guy and they just can't make it work. And listen, I'm not in Flowery Branch, right? I'm not at the Falcons headquarters and knowing on what's going on in the meetings between Ridley and the front office, but it's a bummer that they couldn't make this relationship work. And it looked like it was past a point of no return once he was suspended and once he stepped out and away from football last year this time. For reasons none of us really know through and through, but it's a bummer for sure. That's where I'm going to say. And for that, I'll give it a B+. I will say this. Anytime you make a trade with the Jags, it feels like that's the best person to trade with, the best team to trade with. Because good chance, if they do get a second-round pick, it's going to be close to pick number 33, right? If you had to pick one team to trade for and get a second-rounder back, odds are you want to have the Jags because that's a decently high chance they're going to bottom out, and it's going to be a high second-round pick. All right, we got more on this here. The Falcons' cap space in 2023 just bumped from $65 million to $76 million before the carryover, before cutting Mariota. Add those, and the Falcons could be at $90 million before free agency even starts. So the Falcons are definitely shaping up to be a competitive team the next couple seasons. They're competitive right now, right? They're at the top of the NFC South, but they can do some damage in free agency and the draft. We're going to get to more on the latest Falcons trades in just a moment, but we have a brand new sponsor that just rolled out here at Chat Sports I have to tell you guys about, because you can become a Lord. Yeah, you heard me. A Lord, thanks to established titles. It's a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping with global reforestation efforts. This is a project based on historic Scottish custom, where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords and ladies. And well, that could be you. This title right here gets you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number located in Edelston, Scotland. You could be Lord Matthew Peterson or whatever your name is, like I am right now, thanks to established titles. So get started right now, become a Lord, own some land in Scotland, and be able to say, I'm a Falcons landowner and Lord all across the world. Check it out, establishedtitles.com/chat. Here's what's really cool about what Established Titles is doing for the fans of the Dirty Birds. The first 200 people to use that link and promo code chat, all that's in the comments and the description of today's show, well, they're going to be a part of our Falcons Kingdom over in Scotland. That is right. You're going to be right next to our lot here at Chat Sports. It'll be a growing Falcons community. And who knows? There might be some, I don't know, Scottish people walking around deciding, I'm a Falcons fan now, because there are Falcons lots all over. And you can be a Lord. You can get it on your driver's license. You can put it on your dating profile. It'll get you some more swipes if you are Lord, right? Instead of just like measly old Mister. All right, let's get back to the trade details here. Now, following this trade, the Falcons wide receiver room, which has been this all year, stays like this all year, right? It's not going to impact anything, but it does do more on Drake London's plate, because the aspirations of maybe London and Ridley being a 1-2 duo when London was drafted, well, that's out the window right now. Now, the Falcons are definitely going to go out and try and find a lower-level replacement for Calvin Ridley, whether it's through the draft or free agency, so that's not London and Byrd and the rest of the crew moving forward. But Calvin Ridley this year has looked like a potential NFL Rookie of the Year at times. If they can capture that and bottle it through the entire rest of the season, it's going to be fun. Now, the interesting thing is, I thought more and more about this trade. What does Arthur Smith like to do on first, second, and third down? Run, run, run. I think clearly the Falcons looked at their offensive weapons and said, we're pretty good maybe at receiving threats in terms of top-end dollar and talent we want to pay for Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So if we're going to be a running football team anyway, does it make a lot of sense to have Calvin Ridley still on this roster when he returns? When we can take some draft assets, get 2 picks out of this, and maybe put those into our defense and building our offense even more? Or drafting a quarterback to make some real competition? So I think those are kind of the bare bones of the trade analysis and background here. Now listen, anytime some Falcons news happens, we keep you guys plugged in here at the channel. So subscribe today if you have not already. I promise you guys, there is no other Falcons YouTube channel out there that's going to get you the most up-to-date news and rumors like we do here at Falcons Today by Chat Sports. All right, now let's look at the Falcons 2023 NFL draft picks. Following this trade, ATL still has their own first, second, third. They have that 4th-round pick from Julio Jones trade. It's a little fishy. It's a little confusing, but we'll cross that bridge come April. They have either a 5th or a 6th-round pick coming from the Jags, dependent on when Calvin Ridley is reinstated. But for now, let's just kind of circle the 5th. So 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and they have a pair of 7th-round picks, one coming from the Raiders for the Edwards trade, and one coming from Buffalo for a trade that we're going to look at in just a little bit. But do you believe in this Falcons regime? Do you believe in Fontenot and Ryan Pace and the rest of the big cheeses and wigs over at the Falcons front office that they are making the right moves? Y for yes or N for no. Let me know if you have faith in the current regime over at Atlanta. All right, let's move on here to some more trade buzz that happened today and some other things like Rashad Fenton getting traded from Kansas City to Atlanta. So the Falcons looking to bolster up their secondary, losing A.J. Terrell and Hayward earlier this year to injuries, clearly sitting at the top of the NFC South. They thought, why don't we shore up our defensive backs? Because last time out, the Bengals, well, they carved up the Falcons secondary. So the Falcons add Fenton over to this cornerback room, and he's going to be right there with Alford and Hall and Isaiah Oliver and the rest of this Falcons secondary. They are waiting to get Terrell and Hayward back to 100%. So a lower level trade, only a 7th round pick, which they then, by the way, used. So it's kind of like they traded Fenton for, well, the Bills, who got Dean Marlowe, the safety from the Falcons. So you can almost look at it as they traded Marlowe for Fenton. I mean, we're talking about two trades that aren't the biggest eye-popping names, and it's 7th round picks. So, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if come April, if Fontenot's like, I wonder if they forgot about it, and maybe we still get that 7th rounder, because maybe they just, kind of like if you forget to Venmo request someone, like, do I just keep this money forever? Maybe that's what's going to happen. Probably not, but you can hope. But Dean Marlowe this year, just 11 tackles. He has not been making big-time plays across the field. So Fontenot decides, you know what, right before the trade deadline buzzer, let's make some more moves. Let's make some extra additional buzz happening out there right now. Depth chart right now sits like this. Hawkins and Richie Grant are your two starters. I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons decide to go out and make a practice squad signing. Just a name to keep an eye on, just an idea to keep an eye on for some potential moves that could be on the horizon for Fontenot and the Falcons. All right, Mike Garafolo now tweeting this out. The Falcons then signed defensive end Olamide Zaccheaus to the practice squad. The former undrafted free agent was suspended for 6 games to start the season. So some additional Falcons roster moves being made. It's been a pretty busy day for Fontenot and company. 3 trades, a signing, a lot going on over in Flowery Branch. So some moves being made. We're keeping you guys up to date here at the channel. So make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you guys later with more Falcons news and rumors.